You'll never believe what I found hidden in the back of my wife's closet. Stick around to the end to hear the shocking conclusion to this story. It will leave you speechless. It started a few weeks after our 5th anniversary. Sarah and I were cleaning out the house for a yard sale when she casually mentioned not touching her box in the closet. She laughed it off, saying it was just old memories she wasn't ready to part with. I thought nothing of it at the time. But late one night, while she was out with her friends, I found myself standing in front of that closet. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened the box, expecting old photos or letters, but instead, I found a pile of receipts and notes that didn't add up. Expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, hotel stays, and a card addressed to her, not from me, but signed with someone else's name. To my love, always yours, Jake. My hands trembled. My chest tightened. Who was Jake? And why was she hiding this? When Sarah came home that night, I couldn't confront her. I needed to know more before I said anything. I decided to keep my discovery a secret for now. The next morning, I noticed her phone buzzing on the counter. She always guarded it carefully, but she was in the shower. The notification on the screen read, "Jake, can't wait to see you again." That was the moment I realized something was terribly wrong. After finding that message on Sarah's phone, I knew I couldn't ignore it. Stay with me until the end to see how I uncovered the truth. It's unbelievable. I sat there staring at her phone, my mind racing. Should I open it? Should I confront her? But no. I needed to know the whole story first. Sarah walked back into the room, her hair wrapped in a towel, completely unaware of my discovery. "Everything okay?" she asked, flashing me her usual smile. I forced a smile back. "Yeah, just checking some emails," I lied, my heart pounding. Over the next few days, I became hyper-aware of everything she did. Late-night work meetings, sudden trips to the store that lasted hours, and a constant need to keep her phone close. My gut told me something wasn't right, and the more I watched, the more certain I became. One evening, I told Sarah I'd be working late. Instead, I parked a block away from her house and waited. Sure enough, an hour later, a sleek black car pulled up to the driveway. I watched as Sarah walked out, looking more dressed up than I'd seen her in months, and climbed into the passenger seat. I followed them from a distance, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. They pulled into a small, upscale restaurant downtown, the kind of place she used to love going to with me. I parked and walked inside, keeping a safe distance. There she was, sitting across from a man I'd never seen before, laughing and leaning in close. It felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I needed proof. When I got back to the car, I sat in silence, my emotions a tangled mess of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. I thought about our prenup, the agreement we'd signed before our marriage. Had she forgotten? Did she think she could betray me without consequences? That night, as I lay in bed pretending to sleep, my mind raced. I knew the time to confront her was coming, but I wanted to be ready. If she thought she could play me for a fool, she was about to learn how wrong she was. The truth was staring me in the face, but confronting Sarah wasn't going to be simple. Stay until the end to find out how this all unravels. It's shocking. The next morning, Sarah acted like everything was normal. She kissed me goodbye, told me she was meeting a friend later, and left for work. Little did she know I'd already planned my next move. I reached out to a private investigator. If I was going to confront her, I needed undeniable proof, something she couldn't talk her way out of. The investigator, a no-nonsense woman named Claire, assured me she'd get to the bottom of it quickly. Over the next week, Claire sent me updates. Pictures of Sarah meeting Jake at different spots around town. Emails between them that she'd managed to uncover. Their messages were filled with promises and plans that made my stomach turn. They were talking about vacations, expensive gifts, things Sarah had told me we couldn't afford. I stayed calm on the surface, but every time Sarah walked into the room, I felt the weight of the lies she was carrying. She would sit on the couch, laughing at her favorite shows, completely oblivious to the storm brewing. One night, she casually mentioned how stressful work had been and suggested we plan a weekend getaway. "We need some time to reconnect," she said with a smile that almost felt genuine. I forced a laugh. Sounds like a great idea, I replied, though in my mind, I was already finalizing my plan. The next morning, Claire called with the final piece of the puzzle. I found something you'll want to see, she said. She sent over a document. Sarah had booked a luxury hotel suite for the following weekend. But it wasn't for us. The reservation was for 2 people, and she'd used our joint account to pay for it. That was the tipping point. She wasn't just betraying me emotionally, she was using our shared resources to fund her lies. I decided it was time to confront her. But I wasn't going to do it alone. I needed a witness, someone who could ensure the truth came out clearly and completely. I called my lawyer and set a meeting for the next day. Sarah had no idea what was coming. As she prepared for her business trip, I prepared to expose the lies she thought she'd gotten away with. The stage was set for Sarah to face the truth, but I had one last surprise she didn't see coming. Stick around to the end to see how it all unfolded. The day of Sarah's business trip arrived. She was cheerful, almost too cheerful, as she packed her bags. I'll only be gone for a couple of days, she said, giving me a quick kiss on the cheek. I nodded, keeping my face neutral. Take care, I replied, watching her walk out the door with a suitcase that wasn't meant for work at all. As soon as she left, I grabbed my phone and called Claire, the private investigator. She was already in position near the hotel where Sarah was meeting Jake. Within an hour, Claire sent me photos of Sarah checking into the suite, hand in hand with him. I forwarded the photos to my lawyer and set off to the hotel. My heart was pounding, but I knew this confrontation wasn't just about emotion anymore. It was about justice and taking back control of my life. When I arrived, I made sure the hotel staff knew exactly who I was and why I was there. With their help, I was escorted to the suite. The manager knocked on the door. When Sarah opened it, her face went pale. Jake stood behind her, confused and uneasy. "What's going on?" she stammered. I stepped forward, holding up the photos Claire had taken. "You tell me, Sarah. Is this your idea of a business trip?" Jake tried to speak, but I cut him off. "This isn't about you, buddy. I suggest you leave now unless you want to be part of a legal battle you're not ready for." Sarah started to cry, her usual tactic to gain sympathy, but I wasn't falling for it this time. "Save the tears, Sarah. I gave you my trust, my time, and my love, and this is how you repay me." She tried to apologize, but I wasn't interested. "Do you remember the prenup we signed?" I asked, my voice steady. "You thought it was just a formality, but guess what? It wasn't. You betrayed me, and now you lose everything." I handed her the photos and a copy of the prenup, highlighting the clause about infidelity. "This is going to the lawyer. You can keep your lies, but you won't keep a dime of what we built together." Sarah broke down completely, begging me to reconsider. But I'd made up my mind. It was time to move on, with or without her. As I left the hotel, I felt an unexpected sense of relief. The truth was out, and now I had the power to rebuild my life, free from deceit. The fallout from that confrontation was more than I ever expected. But it wasn't over yet. Sarah still had one final card to play. Stay with me to find out how it ends. The next few days were a whirlwind. Sarah moved out of the house, taking only a few belongings. She tried reaching out multiple times, texts, calls, even emails, but I ignored every single one. There was nothing left to say. I focused on the next steps, legal proceedings. My lawyer was ready to file for divorce, and I was more than prepared to follow through. The prenup had been airtight, and Sarah had no idea how much of a mistake she'd made. But then, just when I thought things were settling, I received a letter from her lawyer. The words in the letter left me speechless. "Dear Mr. Last Name, our client, Mrs. Last Name, acknowledges the situation at hand. However, she is prepared to contest the prenup on the grounds of coercion, claiming that she was not fully aware of its implications at the time of signing. She also demands a larger share of the marital assets due to her contributions over the years." It was a move I hadn't anticipated. Sarah was going to fight me in court, claiming she was manipulated into signing the prenup. The audacity! I took a deep breath, reminding myself that this was just another attempt to get out of the mess she'd created. I wasn't about to let her tear apart what I'd worked so hard to build. I called my lawyer. "Prepare for a fight," I said, my voice calm but determined. "She wants to make this difficult? Fine. But I'll make sure she doesn't walk away with a single cent that isn't hers." While preparing for the legal battle, I kept myself busy with things that brought me peace. My work, reconnecting with old friends, and rediscovering hobbies I'd abandoned years ago. I had no interest in letting Sarah drag me back into her drama. One evening, as I was reviewing some documents at home, my phone buzzed. It was an unexpected message, this time from Sarah, asking if we could talk. I hesitated but agreed, thinking it might give me one final chance to hear her side of things before we went to court. We met at a cafe. She looked different, tired, worn down by the weight of her choices. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice low. "I never meant for things to go this far. I was selfish, and I regret everything." Her apology wasn't enough. "You betrayed me, Sarah," I said, staring at her without emotion. "And now you want me to just forgive you? After everything?" She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I didn't think you'd find out. I thought I could get away with it." That was the moment I realized something. Sarah wasn't just losing me. She was losing everything she thought she could control. And I wasn't about to let her win this round. "I don't care about your regret," I told her, standing up. "You'll have to face the consequences of your actions, and so will Jake. But I'll be fine. I've already moved on." I walked out of the cafe, leaving her sitting there, alone with her guilt. The chapter of my life with Sarah was over. The next phase was inevitable, but I wasn't prepared for the shocking turn of events that followed. Stick around till the end to find out how it all unraveled. The weeks after my confrontation with Sarah were tense, to say the least. While I focused on moving forward, Sarah continued to try every possible way to delay the divorce proceedings. She was fighting back harder than I anticipated, making threats about the prenup and trying to convince people that I was the villain in this story. But I wasn't concerned. My lawyer was prepared, and the truth was on my side. The prenup was clear, and Sarah's actions left no room for negotiation. One morning, I received a call from my lawyer. "I have something you need to see," she said, her tone serious. Sarah's lawyer just filed for a motion to invalidate the prenup based on emotional distress. She's claiming that she was under extreme emotional pressure during the marriage and that the prenup was a form of manipulation. I laughed bitterly. Emotional distress? After everything she'd put me through? It was the most ridiculous claim I'd ever heard. I had the proof, the photos, the hotel receipts, the texts. She had no ground to stand on. But then my lawyer dropped a bombshell. "There's more. Sarah's also trying to argue that she was the primary financial contributor during the marriage, and she's asking for alimony." My blood ran cold. It was as if she had completely erased the years we'd spent building a life together. The truth didn't matter to her. She was still trying to manipulate the system to get what she wanted. I took a deep breath and called Claire, the private investigator. "I need everything you can find on Sarah's finances, anything that proves she's lying about her role in our marriage." Within hours, Claire sent me a dossier that turned out to be the final piece of the puzzle. Sarah had been funneling money into a separate account under a false name, one that I had no knowledge of. It wasn't just the infidelity that had hurt me, it was the way she'd hidden assets, trying to deceive me at every turn. Armed with this new evidence, I filed a counterclaim. I wasn't going to let her get away with this, not after everything she'd done. The day the court hearing arrived, I walked in with my head held high. Sarah, on the other hand, looked defeated. Her lawyer had tried to argue her case, but the evidence I had was overwhelming. I watched as Sarah's face drained of color when the judge reviewed the documents we presented. "You're asking for alimony, emotional distress damages, and the invalidation of a contract you voluntarily signed," the judge said, his voice stern. "The court finds no merit in your claims. The prenup stands, and the division of assets will proceed as outlined." I could see the anger flash in Sarah's eyes, but it was too late. The truth had come to light. She had lost. As I walked out of the courtroom, I felt a strange sense of peace. The battle was over, and I had won. More than just the financial settlement, but my dignity, my future, and my freedom. But what really struck me was the silence that followed. Sarah's attempts to manipulate me, to turn the tables, had failed. She had lost everything, and all I had to do was stand my ground. With the court ruling in my favor, I thought the nightmare was finally over. But what came next was something I never expected. Stay with me to see the shocking end of this story. After the court case, Sarah completely vanished from my life. I didn't hear from her again, not even a single attempt to reach out or explain herself. At first, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, as if a burden I didn't even realize I was carrying had finally been released. I focused on rebuilding my life. I invested in myself, took up new hobbies, and reconnected with friends I had lost touch with during the years of stress and deceit. I even met someone new, a woman who saw me for who I truly was and didn't bring any of the baggage Sarah had left behind. But just as I was getting comfortable with my new life, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Sarah. I opened it with caution, already anticipating the emotional manipulation that would be inside. But instead of pleading or demanding anything, the letter was different. Dear my name, I never thought I'd be writing this, but I owe you the truth. When I look back, I see everything clearly now. I made so many mistakes, and I hurt you in ways I never fully understood. I don't expect forgiveness, and I'm not asking for anything. But I wanted you to know that I've changed. I've gone through therapy, and for the first time, I'm facing the consequences of my actions. I hope you find peace and happiness. You deserve it. Sarah. Reading those words, I was torn. Part of me wanted to feel angry again, wanted to keep holding on to the resentment. But another part of me realized something. This was the closure I had been waiting for. I didn't respond to her letter. There was nothing left to say. The past was over, and I had moved on completely. I thought about everything I'd been through, the lies, the heartbreak, the betrayal. But I also thought about how much stronger I had become because of it. I was no longer the man who was afraid to stand up for himself. I was someone who could face the truth, no matter how painful, and come out on the other side better for it. As I closed that chapter for good, I realized that the life I was now building wasn't defined by the past. It was defined by my own strength and the future I was creating. And though Sarah had lost everything she tried to manipulate for, I had gained everything I needed: peace, closure, and the knowledge that I was enough on my own. Now, as I reflect on it all, I have a question for you. Have you ever had to face a betrayal so deep that it changed your life forever? What did you do to reclaim your power and move forward? Let me know in the comments below.